Let's go what you said about the more to lose versus winning. Take
Yeah.
me through that one more time.
Yeah.
Re-say
Yeah.
that, and then
Yeah.
take me through exactly what you mean by that.
Yeah, so you have an event, and let's say you're an organizer and you need to sell 500 tickets, and you have a playbook that has routinely got you just about 500 tickets every single time, and that's sort of your focus, and that's the way you think. Now you could take some big swings and sort of change your marketing completely and go after groups you've never gone after before, although some of your energy would be split. And you might not get the people that you normally do because you're going after these opportunities, these kind of a bigger swing to divide your time to go after, growth. And that means that you could lose. So you don't. You kind of stick to the playbook and maybe you get more time into it or you spend some more money, but ultimately you're still doing the same thing over and over again because it's kind of safe and what have you. Now, if let's say you do that thing, you take a big swing, you invest in I don't know, a PPC campaign you've never done before, some partnerships, and you have to spend some money. Maybe you're taking from other budgets, or maybe you're spending more than you normally have, and you win. You sell 1,000 tickets. Now, what's next year look like for that organizer? Do they share necessarily in the spoils of that? Are they rewarded in a way that sales is rewarded? Are they rewarded in a way that gives them a bigger seat, more resources? In my experience, not really. What's expected next year is you got to sell 1,000 tickets. You might have the same resources that you did when you were trying to sell 500. Do more with less. Now, look, you could have done this. Why weren't you doing this before? So I don't know necessarily if things are as grim as that, but they're not too far off. So wildly succeeding has some drawbacks. Now, let's say you don't sell 500 tickets. You make those, you make those leaps, you swing for the fences, you sell 400 because your resources were split and you tried something. And now, by the way, in every other field, you learned something too, but we don't really think like that, generally speaking, in organizers. It's very linear. You had to get 500, you sold 400, the goal was one, you hit zero, you fail. And in that, your job's sort of on the line. And that's the real world ramifications of the idea of organizers being risk averse. And that's the foundation for a lot of decision making. They're just risk averse. AI comes in and says, look, we're going to tell you some things you didn't know. We're going to look at tons of data, be able to tell you that there's all these opportunities here, but they still require you to take some leaps and some jumps and test some things. Additionally, you're going to have to take your time and you're going to see that you're going to shave off time here, shave off time there, and you're going to be aware of the fact that a lot of the time that you spend is been spent on things that can be done faster. What are you going to do with that time? And how is that going to, the expectation shift and maybe in the leadership of saying, can you do this with half the time? That's their fear. The reality is that they need to evolve to be something beyond that.
I think it's cool that we're having a conversation around AI, right? Obviously, it's a resource, it's a tool, it's a method of working, or it certainly will become, right? But some of the things that you're talking about, the more to lose versus more to gain is interesting, right? I think saying things like that event marketers have a lack of resources, lack of time, all true. And then I really like how you pointed towards the incentive idea, right? Like, okay, if I do get this event from 500 to 700, 800, and we convert X and this happens and the ROI and the measurement and this and that, like a lot of event marketers are really not treated that way. They're not incentivized that way. So essentially the status
Digital is.
quo, a
And
digital
digital doesn't think
1000%.
linear, right?
Exactly.
Digital doesn't put all the chips on red and hope that it comes up on red. What it does is it makes a small gamble. It watches, it learns, it determines, what factor got it to those numbers or whatever. And then it makes a split and then it doubles
Yep.
down on what works and it sort of cuts what does not. We don't think like that
Yep.
in an event. We put all of our reputation, who we are, our experience, all in one idea, one strategy, one way. And if it doesn't work out, it's an indictment of us. Now, there's no indictment of me as a digital marketer. If I put an ad that isn't successful, no one's like, you don't know what you're talking about. I just learned
You learn
something.
from
And
it and move on. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, every day. And some
Gotcha.
of it's part of events because events have a tight landing. Like it's a very
Mhm.
small spot. The event has to happen that day. Digital marketing is ongoing. So that's a constraint of what, I think is the foundation for all this linear thinking. Like when there's an end, i.e. the event, linear thinking is sort of obvious. However, if that's the only event you're ever going to do and you're never going to do anything other than that, I guess fair enough, it's linear. But that's not the case for the majority of people. You have annual events, you have lots of opportunities to exhibit, there's learn, and in the midst of an event, you can also take a pause and say, what can we learn now too?
Yeah.